Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second day of the 13th annual, 13th annual Homeland Security Symposium and Expo. I'm Nathan Bush, co-director of the Center for American Studies. For those of you who are joining us today, as opposed to yesterday, let me tell you a little bit about the Center for American Studies. So the Center for American Studies is an interdisciplinary initiative here at CNU dedicated to supporting teaching and research about America's founding principles, America's economic system, and national security. This is, as I mentioned, our 13th annual Homeland Security Symposium, and we're absolutely delighted about the discussion and the speakers and the networking yesterday. We hope to continue that today. To kick off the day, we have a tremendous treat. It's my pleasure to introduce the opening keynote for the day, Stanley Meador, who is Virginia's Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. Secretary Meador brings nearly 3 decades of law enforcement and national security experience to this role. A native of Southwest Virginia, he began his career in 1997 as a special agent with the Virginia ABC Authority, conducting complex investigations into financial crimes, drug trafficking, and regulatory offenses. He later served in the FBI's Las Vegas field office, working on public corruption, violent gangs, and criminal enterprises. In 2013, he was promoted to supervisory special agent and moved to the FBI's International Operations Division at FBI headquarters. He then served as supervisory senior resident agent in the Charlotte field office and later as special agent in charge in the Philadelphia field office. In 2020, he was selected to serve as Chief of Staff of the FBI's Deputy Director. Secretary Meador holds a bachelor's degree from Roanoke College and a master's degree from American University, and he received a Declaration of Valor for his response at the Pentagon during the events of September 11th. We are absolutely delighted to have Secretary Meador join us today, and please join me in welcoming him to CNU.
Well, good morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning to speak with you for just a few minutes, and am honored to have this opportunity. I looked over the past agendas from the prior symposium and saw the speakers that you've had before and the quality of who they are. So I feel honored to be in this same place and to be able to share a few thoughts with you. Today I'm going to, looking at your agenda, I know that you have a number of sessions that are topics specific to AI and related topics, but for me, I'm going to give you a more high-level, general 3 areas of focus that I think are most important for us to consider in this space, whether you're in academia, whether you're in industry, or whether you're in government. I want to focus on these 3 key areas because I want to tell you about some thought processes that derive from those areas and what it means for public safety and how I look at public safety, and then what it means for the administration and some things that we're working on moving forward. But what I have to start with, when I tell you those 3 things, I'm going to be talking about preparation, collaboration, and preservation. And I would argue that of the 3, to me personally, number 3 is one of the most overlooked areas of space that we need to discuss, and that's preservation. So again, preparation, collaboration, preservation. This week, to start off with preparation, this week is a very exciting time. Does anyone know what's happening this week that is just awesome and exciting? It's in the sports world. Any ideas? What's happening this week? March Madness, right? How many basketball fans do we have in the audience, right? For me, I absolutely love basketball. I love it. And when March Madness rolls around, it's all I can do to get the bracket printed, sit with my family, fill the bracket out, figure out who's going to be the Cinderella team for the Cinderella story, figure out what underdog is going to win. I love it. I love the arenas packed with people, the excitement that it brings. But there's one thing that's fascinating about Division I basketball, to me, fascinating. When you look at the sport of basketball and you look at Division I players, I mean, we're talking about March Madness. We're talking about the top college basketball players in the country coming together in a tournament, all vying to get to the Final Four and to become that national champion, right? There's one thing that is fascinating about the game is no matter how prepared, no matter how much we see people put and invest in the sport, when we look at the game of basketball, when it comes to the tournament, Division I players still miss free throws. Think about it. These are the top college basketball players in the country. But still, when we watch the tournament and we watch these players come together in their games throughout the week and throughout the next several weeks, we will see Division I players still miss free throws. How is that? I mean, think about the game. When you're on the foul line, the clock has stopped, right? There's no defense. It's just you and the goal, right? What college coaches will tell you, and anyone that's been around the sport will tell you, is that Division I college player does not rise to the moment to make that shot. That college player falls back on their preparation to make that shot. Because to make that shot, it really isn't about the singularity of just shooting the ball, right? If you break it down, it's really about an 8 to 10 step process that goes into making that free throw. Because your feet need to be shoulder width apart, right? You need to have a bounce in your knees. The elbow needs to be in. Visually, you need to be looking at the center prong on the rim. It needs to be one continuous motion as you go up. You need to flip your wrist to put the rotation on the ball. All the while, you need to be mentally in the right space to make sure that all those things work so that that ball goes into the rim. So when we talk about preparation, the preparation to make the shot does not occur on the foul line in the moment of need. The preparation occurs in the thousands of shots that were practiced before we got to that moment. And so when we think about public safety and we think about preparation and the importance of preparation, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about rising to the occasion when we have an incident. There's a cybersecurity incident, we rise to the occasion and we put on our defense and we solve the problem. No, we're focusing on preparedness so that when those events come, we've built the muscle memory to navigate those scenarios. For me, when I look at preparation, there are really some key things that I think we all should factor into that space. No matter where you're at, whether you're in a public safety space, whether you're in a corporate industry space, we all need to be building towards a culture of readiness. And when you think about our public safety and you think about all the things that we do in public safety, whether it's fire, police, even on the federal level and the things they're looking at, we're building towards that culture of preparedness, a culture of readiness. And by doing that, we're preparing and we're going through the motions and we're what-ifing those scenarios to understand what it is that we should expect, and do we have the necessary tools and resources to respond accordingly and deal with whatever the thing is for that day. And from a culture of readiness, what I find in public safety is we always have to be asking ourselves, are we ready and are we prepared? Are we ready and are we prepared? And the way that we do that and the way that I encourage people to do that, you see this a lot in the cyberspace, specifically is we do that through the same way that basketball players do it. We do it through exercise. Exercise, exercise, exercise. And a lot of those times when we think about those exercises, we're always, and I'm always encouraging, how are you, from your culture of readiness and your preparedness, how are you exercising your muscle memory to build that culture? What are you doing in your space to exercise? And oftentimes the exercises don't have to be, I know we've got Adam Lee from Dominion Energy. You look at Dominion Energy does an excellent exercise of Cyber Fortress. Anybody here heard of Cyber Fortress? It's something you should Google. It's something you should look up. That is an exercise. It's a large-scale exercise, but not every exercise really even has to be that large. That is in a perfect world and a great corporate structure, an awesome thing, but exercising can be down at just an executive level, where it's done just with executive tabletops, with your corporate team, or even down further with working group teams that you have. But the key is when we're building towards a culture of readiness, we got to exercise. So again, when we talk about preparation, we're talking about building a culture of readiness. We're talking about building that culture of readiness through exercising, but we're also looking at focusing on continuity versus just the incident. And for me, and the reason I'm giving this and laying this kind of from a high level out for you is I'm going to connect this into what we're doing in the administration moving forward, specific to public safety. When we think about that preparation, we want to build towards continuity, not just defense. And when we think about that continuity, it's thinking about how quickly can we recover from whatever the thing is. I don't want to be specific to say it's just cybersecurity, but that's a great easy example to use is how quickly can we recover from a cybersecurity incident. That is building towards a mindset of continuity. We would say in the cybersecurity space, make sure you have a robust system of backups, preferably offline backups, right? Building towards that culture of preparedness and that readiness to make sure that you're building towards that continuity so it's not about the incident itself. It's about how quickly we can recover from the incident and move forward. And we think about that in the public safety space, all the exercises that we perform and that we go through, whether it's a tabletop that's in a corporate office or a tabletop that's out in the field with multiple partners, we are building through navigating the initial incident, but we're also building towards that continuity to be able to move forward, take lessons learned from that incident to be able to make us stronger as we move forward. The second thing, when you think about that preparation, that culture of readiness, if you go back to the basketball analogy and you think that player has stayed on that line and has built over years of thousands of free throws, that preparedness to shoot, there's another thing that goes on this week in the game of basketball that plays towards the second key point of collaboration. How many have ever seen an individual player in basketball play 1-on-5? Where have you seen a basketball game where one person won the basketball game because of what they did for 4 quarters? You don't see that. Because if I said to you Michael Jordan, everyone here would know who Michael Jordan is, right? But if I asked you, who's Scottie Pippen? Who's Dennis Rodman? You would know who those players are because yes, Michael Jordan was a good player, but it was never really about Michael Jordan. Is the Chicago Bulls, right? With a team of 5 that won games, right? It was never about the individual. And when we think about collaboration and what that means in the teamwork space, it means working with partners and sharing information. And so what has been key to me in my career, and I know I got a number of formers from the Bureau that worked with me or came from this space know this as well, one of the most successful things, one of the non-negotiables that we had in our space was understanding the importance of collaboration and working with other people. So it doesn't matter, again, whether you're in academia, industry, or you're in government, instilling in yourself a culture of working together with other partners has to be paramount in your space, especially in the public safety arena. Because point number 1 would be, when we think about collaboration, sharing intel builds for quicker defense, right? Sharing information allows us to build for a quicker response and a quicker defense. The second thing it allows us to do from a partnership perspective, partnerships allow us to get to solutions quicker. They allow us to get to solutions quicker because we're relying and we're talking to other people, we're learning from other entities, and we're bringing to bear what resources and tools that they may have to solve whatever, again, the thing is. The other thing that partnerships do, when you think about collaboration and working together, and this is paramount again in the public safety space, especially when we're responding to critical incidents, is collaborating and working with others builds trust. It builds trust. When you think about the tragic shooting that just happened here just several days ago, when I responded down to ODU, I knew before I got there, that before I walked into the command post, that those relationships had been formed before that incident. I knew that the relationships that had been formed there, I knew that they knew each other's tools, what each other brought to bear. I knew that because they were friends and associates before the crisis occurred. And I also know when we think about building towards that continuity and working through that incident, I knew they knew what to do because they had practiced it and rehearsed critical incidents and how to move through that space. All of that plays into building towards a culture of preparedness, but also understanding the importance of teamwork and collaboration so that when the thing occurs, that we are all able to rise to the occasion because we have the trust, we understand each other's tools, the resources that we bring, and we're able to move through that, whatever the thing is. The reason I focused, they seem like they're very easy topics. Well, you're just talking about being prepared and collaborating. They seem fairly easy. But sometimes you'll get out into the space and you'll see they're not always that easy because we fall into this siloed world of where you do your thing and we do our thing and then you do your thing and so forth. And for us, when we think about the administration and the Secretariat of Public Safety and what we're doing moving forward, we are moving towards a culture of unified readiness. Unified readiness. Last Monday, the governor and team, myself, with a number of partners around the table, rolled out that initial brief focused on unified readiness. And here's what it means. When we looked around the Commonwealth, look at all of the stakeholders that we have in public safety. We have police chiefs. We have sheriffs. We have fire chiefs. We have emergency managers. We have critical infrastructure. And the list goes on and on. And so the question that we asked ourselves is we looked around the Commonwealth and we said, we have great people doing great things around the Commonwealth. The question is the leadership in those various sectors all coordinated with a strategy down on how we respond and prepare for events and how we actually keep people safe? Do we have a culture of unified readiness? And so the brief that we rolled out with the governor on this past Monday was a brief with stakeholders sitting around the table that represented various interests. And we held for the first time ever the largest public safety brief in the Commonwealth because we invited every police chief, every sheriff, every fire chief, et cetera, and it's estimated to be just under 1,000 on the call. Now, the good news is we were bold enough to make that move. What's the bad news? The link didn't work. Yeah, right? The link didn't work. We were able, in 10 minutes, with it starting 10 minutes later, we were able to get it functioning. So we were able to get about 300 online. But what's interesting about that scenario, and I bring it up to you not to hark and joke on the fact that the link didn't work, but it's to teach a point of what I just talked about, exercising. What did we do in that space? We were bold enough to see, can we get every single public safety leader in the Commonwealth on a call? Can we actually do that? If we haven't done that, we need to try it. And if it doesn't work, what are we going to do? We're going to fix it and figure out how that's not going to happen again, right? That is building that muscle memory and going through exercise. And so we learned in that moment what to do, what not to do next time, but we put the relevant people around the table and we started to roll out this mindset of this unified readiness, because the example that we wanted to set for people to see was that at the table we had chiefs, sheriffs, academia, National Guard representation, Dominion Energy representation from critical infrastructure, Port Authority representation. We wanted to put all those people around the table, and then we wanted to take what information we had there that we were discussing and assessing our culture of readiness given all of the current worldly events, and we wanted to share that with 1,000 leaders across the Commonwealth, because we wanted them to have a common operating picture of what we're doing and what we're doing moving forward. One of the things that we're rolling out from that is, one, it was our initial attempt to have that brief. The second thing that we're going to roll out from that is going to be our unified readiness summits. We are going to move into hosting preparedness summits all across the Commonwealth. There might be 5, there might be 7. We're still working out those regional areas and what that looks like. But what we're going to do in that space is we're going to bring together those stakeholders to talk about mutual aid, to talk about things of importance when it comes to helping and supporting each other, because from a unified Commonwealth framework strategy, we want a top-down, fully supported approach to public safety with all our relevant partners in the room. We want to be an effective Commonwealth. We want to be a united Commonwealth. And we want everybody moving to the same beat with the same information. And just because you might be in Lee County, Virginia, and something might be happening in Virginia Beach, we want you to know what's happening, because in our culture of preparedness, we want to live in that. It's not a matter of if, but when, right? We want to be in that culture of preparedness. The last area I'd give you, so when we talk about preparation and we talk about collaboration, the third area I would argue is more personal, but it's one of the most, I would argue, the most overlooked areas that we have when we have sessions like this, and it's preservation. See, one of the things that I've learned about leadership is leadership from a kind of high level. When we all talk about leaders, whether you're a leader in your space, whether that you're a leader in a corporate environment, a leader in academia, leadership we look at as decision maker, policy, structure, command authority. When I look at leadership, I look at the individual, each one of you, and I think about leadership is actually about longevity. It's actually about continuing in your role and being as effective as you can in your role, but I look at it as a longevity piece. And to make the finer point on that, I'll give you, because I want to make this a little bit personal for you, because what I want you to take away when we come into these rooms and we talk about AI and we talk about data and we talk about security and public safety, for me, we are missing a huge element from a leadership perspective that we need to be talking about. Because in public safety, we have a no-fail mission. It's a no-fail mission. But in order to be the most effective in public safety, us as leaders have to be at the top of our game all the time, right? We don't have the luxury of, we're not going to say weakness, right? But we have to be at the top of our game because we have a no-fail mission. And what that means is when we think about preservation, I'm talking about you as leaders in your space. I believe that if your words and actions have the ability to influence those around you, that makes you a leader. Leadership's not determined by pay rank, and it sure as heck ain't determined by pay grade. If your words or actions have the ability to influence people around you, you're a leader. So that makes every one of you in this room a leader in your space. And so when we think about leadership, I want you to think about longevity in leadership. I want you to think about being as effective as you can in your space moving forward. And so this month is something that's very near and dear to my heart, but let's make it a little personal for a moment. Can anyone tell me the second leading cause of cancer death in the country? Any idea? It's colon cancer, right? It's the number one leading cause of cancer death for adults under 50. And what's interesting about that is, as a stage 4 colon cancer survivor, right, when we think about longevity and we think about our space and we think about preparation and collaboration, would you believe that one of the lessons that cancer taught me was that there's actually a connection between surviving cancer and preservation and collaboration? Because personal health in your space, personal health is a form of preparedness. I want you to be the most impactful leaders that you can be in your space, but you can't be there unless you're healthy and you're taking care of yourself. Personal health is a form of preparedness. And so when we think about it in the colon cancer space, what we're talking about is screenings, going through pre-medical screenings. I bet most people look at their medical history and they look at the fact that their medical insurance probably gives them one physical a year, paid for. And I'd ask yourself, how many of you have actually taken that? How many actually know whether or not you get a physical for a year? That's preparedness, taking care of yourself. Because from a leadership perspective, and one of the things that I feel obligated to, I hesitate to say the word preach, but I feel obligated to say in this space as a representative of the Public Safety Secretariat is, in public safety, if we are strong at our game, strong leaders build strong teams. If you are building a culture of preparedness and you are focusing on health and wellness in your space, you are building strong teams. Because if you make it a priority, the team makes it a priority. And you're setting in motion thoughts and processes, you're setting in motion, focusing on something that makes us be better in our space. Because again, going back to that public safety mindset, we don't have the opportunity to fail. We have got to be at the top of our game all the time. So focusing on public health, number one, is a form of preparedness. But when you think specifically about health and wellness, your wellness is a form of collaboration. Because when we make that a priority in our space, and I see it across law enforcement today, every time I go and meet with a police chief, every time I go and meet with a sheriff, hands down, the number one thing that I hear, hands down, is not what you would think is a crime-specific thing. You know what it is? It's health and wellness. We got to focus on our people. We got to take time to do this. What can we do in this space? There's also a little thread that I'll pull. There's also health and wellness when it comes to the general public, because one of the most challenging things in Virginia for local departments to deal with is dealing with emergency custody orders and temporary detention orders. That is one of the biggest strains in local law enforcement today, because there just isn't anywhere to take anyone, because either beds are full, and if they're full, officers and deputies are spending an inordinate amount of time in cars having to keep the individual in custody until they can find an open bed. So the health and wellness aspect is everywhere around us in public safety. But when we come into a lot of these forums and we talk about things, it seems to be one of those that is often overlooked. And so my message to you today is, when you think about partnerships and you think about preparation rather, and you think about collaboration, is that you take time out in your space to have a personal focus on yourself and connecting that to your preparedness. But more importantly, whatever space that you're in, that you're taking time to connect that to your teams. Because in order for your teams to be as effective as they can be, you need to drive that culture and focus on that health and wellness so that they are able to move rise to the occasion and do what they need to do to move your mission with whatever your space is, to move that mission forward. In all of those things, what I would ask you is, try not, as we move forward in that moving forward with a public safety mindset, is whether it's partnerships and collaboration or preservation? I would ask each of you, I would challenge you to ask yourselves, what are you doing in those three arenas? I would ask you in the preparation stage, what are you doing in your space to drive a culture of readiness? And if your answer is, well, I'm part of this, I'm part of this, I'm part of this. Okay, what's next? There has to be a what's next. It can't be we're just finished and we're just partnered up and okay, I'm done with partnering. No, we need to be innovative. We need to be thinking about what more we can do. The same thing is in the collaboration space when we think about those partnerships is I would challenge you to think in that space, what are you doing in the partnership space? Are you a partner to people? Are you a member of things? Are you, and if not, can you initiate something that brings 2 or 3 people together in a room to tackle a challenge? I would challenge you to think about that. And then I would challenge you also to think about in your own preservation mindset, what are you doing in that space for yourself? And then what are you doing for your team as well? And all those things, I'd ask you not to be superficial about it. Don't just look at things on the surface. Like get down into the weeds. And I'll give you an example. How many here by show of hands? I know what the response is going to be to this, and every audience I do, this one may be a little different. How many in here have ever used any AI platform by show of hands? Okay. How many here, why don't you keep your hands up? How many here have used ChatGPT? Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up, all right? Now, who here can tell me what GPT stands for? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I got 6, okay? I want you to think about that for a moment. Do you know how many audiences that I go into and that fill this room? And I'll say, how many here use AI? And everybody, oh, we love it, it's great. How many here use ChatGPT? Oh, yeah, I use it. How many even know what it stands for? And the whole room goes down. I'm not shocked that there's at least 4 or 5, given the substance of what the conference is, that we have that in here. But it's a great example when we think about what it means to be superficial. Because if we're just using the next cool thing and that's where it stays, that's not learning, right? We've got to get in the weeds and peel the layers back and understand what it is we're working with. I would give the same analogy. I spoke to the National Drone Conference was last week, and largest drone conference in the country. All the companies came together at Busch Gardens. And when we talked about that, we talked about not being superficial, meaning understanding that drone technology has a place in public safety. But what we have to build towards is a culture of understanding how to use that technology, what the technology is, what it means for policies and procedures, what it means to protection of rights, constitutional rights, and not invading on people's privacy. It was all these questions that required us to dig down and get down into the weeds. And that is the same thing when you think about just the simple example of knowing what GPT stands for, is to get into the weeds and don't be superficial. And I say that because as I close and we think about what it means from a partnership and from collaboration and preservation is don't just look at them as superficial terms. Well, yeah, I talk to people. Well, yeah, I'm prepared. I'm ready. People know my cell phone number. Oh, yeah, well, I'm prepared. I'll go to the doctor. That's what I'm talking about, being superficial. Don't stay just up here, but get down in the weeds and get down and peel the layers back on what those items are and what they mean in your space so that you can be as impactful as possible with those areas. What I'm looking forward to in the administration that's moving forward, the governor has been, I don't even have a word to tell you how supportive she is of public safety in the space that we've been in, the conversations that we've had. I was so proud on the rollout of the Unified Readiness Briefing to see the support of that and to see what that's going to become for us in the Commonwealth, because that will be what we will put everything under. That will be our umbrella framework and structure that we will use moving forward. And I look forward to those preparedness summits where we can get out, because we're not only going to be building that structure and that framework and that culture of readiness and preparedness, but we're also going to use it as an opportunity to connect, share information, because we're going to be inviting critical infrastructure and other related entities to the table as well to help be informed in that space so that we can be a better, more unified Commonwealth as we move forward. As far as the Public Safety Secretariat goes, I oversee roughly 16,000 people amongst 10 agencies. It's a rather large portfolio, the largest of which being the Department of Corrections at roughly 12,000 employees. If you add on the 23,000 residents that add to that, you can see it's a little bit bigger of a portfolio. But I bring that up because the Secretariat is a wealth of information and a wealth of intelligence sharing across the forums. And we're looking to bring all that to bear as we move into these preparedness summits to help us, again, be impactful and be effective in our space. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to share some words with you. And I would encourage you, from that leadership mindset to connect with us, to connect with me. If there's anywhere in this space that we can be helpful, please reach out to us and reach out to me directly, and let's coordinate, because we are from that leadership mindset. I'm a big believer that leaders help leaders. You're all leaders in the room, and I look forward to receiving your help as we move forward in the Commonwealth, doing what we can to drive that culture of preparedness, to drive that culture of collaboration, and making sure that we are thinking about what it means to take care of ourselves from a health and wellness mindset. So thank you for this time, and I wish you the best for the rest of your conference today. So thank you.
We have about 10 minutes. Would you be willing to take a few questions?
Absolutely. Any questions on anything we've talked about, or anything at all in general in the Secretariat? I try to manage my time there just a little bit early, but anything at all? Yes, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for being here, and great information. Question, your constituency have to be part of the citizens of the state, if you will. How do you address them as part of the solution set in keeping them ready for what's going to happen?
It's a great question. How do we keep our citizens and constituents ready as well? One of the things that we're working on, and I'm going to use the example that we're currently doing with the Department of Corrections. One of the things, we get a lot of input on DOC of things that we need to do better, things that are working, maybe some areas that need further improvement. And what we're doing is we're sitting with various advocacy groups that come in and want to provide information. So we are providing a forum for that to occur, because to your point, we recognize that their input is valuable in that space. And so we are providing the mechanism to have those conversations, to take that information in. We have a number of other initiatives that we're looking at to connect with the community in that space from an outreach perspective, a community outreach perspective. And so what I'm looking forward to, given we've only been here just a couple of weeks, and we're just now getting on the other side of the General Assembly, looking forward to those, what those deliverables are going to be specific to the community connection, but it is a priority for us. And again, we're already doing it under the DOC umbrella, but there'll be more to come in the community side as well. But it's a great question. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your input, and I do appreciate your time. My name is Mitch Simmons, and I work for Community Electric Cooperative out of Windsor. Do you collaborate with the small electric distribution systems? Like, do you visit? Do you check pen testing or anything like that? Because we would love to have you come over and to see where we could better ourselves in the situational awareness and the preparedness, because we do have substations, and last year and the year before last, substations were being vandalized, and we have to be prepared for things like that. Do you visit the small cooperatives to kind of like give us an insight of what we could be doing to better ourselves, to prepare ourselves?
It's a great question. I think that it actually it reinforces to me why these conversations are important, because that is the input that I'm looking to receive. It's just that. Adam and I, this is what we've done for years. Hearing your input is absolutely, we would love to come to the table and have that conversation. We would love to provide a forum where that discussion is had, and I would look to you for some contact information to say, how can we do that, and how can we be most impactful in that space? So I think that'd be a great opportunity. Back to that unified readiness, that's what we're trying to do. success. I look forward to connecting with you after the talk here, exchange information. That's great. Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm Lieutenant Bunch from the Joint Task Force Civil Support out of the Olympics. So we have lots of exercises with the federal agencies. Do you have any insight how we can make better the military support to the state or the civilian agencies?
Well, I think that I'll go back to our briefing rollout last week of our unified readiness. Our initial brief is that we have, from the National Guard perspective, Secretary Williams over the National Guard, General Ring was there as well. I'm also in contact with Captain of the Coast Guard. We are looking to build out more of those contacts and how we can be proactive in that space. I think that the briefing last week was the start. I know that there are you're going to hear from Brian Dugan, former Special Agent in Charge. I see him in the audience here, who was the former Special Agent in Charge of the Norfolk Field Office and understands from his perspective the military construct down here and that connectivity of what can be done. But from the administration's perspective, what we're going to do is continue to see how we can be more impactful in that space. That is the ongoing discussion right now. So we're doing it right as we speak. So more to come in that space. I think, Ms. Chadwick.
Yes, sir. Mr. Secretary, Tom Chadwick, Dominion Energy. On the heels of the Drone Responders Conference that you and I were both at last week, just interested in your thoughts and prospective strategy, perhaps, about the kind of conflation of drones for good, I'll call it, and drones for bad, right? So on the drones for bad side, we're all seeing what's happening. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night when I think about critical infrastructure. I'm sure my colleagues in the business have similar concerns. HI has had situations we've read about in the paper. But I do think there's some opportunity there in the sense that with the opening up, the administration's desire to open up essentially transportation corridors for drones, for package delivery and that sort of thing. Those networks that are going to be necessary to allow that transportation, to have conspicuity of the drones in the airspace and drones not running into drones and that sort of thing, could be quite possibly the same sort of equipment systems that could be used to identify bad actors, nefarious, not cooperative drones in the airspace. Big picture, the sharing, that's a lot of technology. That's a lot of expense. We have nearly 1,000 substations, right? Imagine trying to protect them. But if there's a network of sharing of that sensor information across the Commonwealth that's utilized for not just as a transportation hub, but also as a defensive posture for our businesses, critical infrastructure, universities, et cetera, I think that could be really effective in the long term. So I'm just curious if, you've been approached about that, if you're thinking through that. It's a big problem, and I know you've been there, you're drinking from a fire hose, I get it, but I'm just sort of putting it on your radar, pun intended, I guess.
Tom, it's only been like 8 weeks. It's a great question, and I have a couple of thoughts. It was, I had as we mentioned, had the fortunate opportunity to deliver just a few opening remarks at the Drone as a First Responder Conference last week, and that's, that audience is well over 500 from folks all across the country, and this is with the public safety space. I would agree with you that the partnership and the collaboration is going to be key in this space. I would, I don't want to speak and get ahead of my skis here, but the first two things that come to mind, two words that come to mind are working group. We hear that a lot, and sometimes we see that come out of the General Assembly on things, and we'll ask for a working group on things. I do think that, we've seen in the space, this historically, DOC is a challenge from the drone space. We know that that there are those challenges, but we also, and I will connect it back to that unified readiness. That's the whole goal of this unified readiness framework, is to make the Commonwealth, we're going to lead forward in all things preparedness and all things from a unified structure, and it's going to require us to understand what does it mean for the drone space. and what can we share, what can we have, what can we partner with, what can we support, all good questions we're going to need to be able to answer, because the speed at which, as you all know in this room, that the technology is evolving, it's not a matter, again, it's not a matter of we have to move forward and evolve with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing in that space, where and what forum is the best way to have those conversations to move that discussion forward. So I'll be leaning on you and others to see how can we be impactful in that space. But I see it, and with the feedback that I took from that conference, while no one has come to me and dropped it, on you must deal with this or work with this, it's an area that we have to prioritize and understand, especially from that public safety space, what we're going to do in this space. It's a great question. One more, sir.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for your remarks. I'm Dominic Romano. So, as you're thinking about being able to, work with different partners to, collect data as it pertains to drones, I'm curious what your thoughts are right now on the ecosystem, considering that a lot of our drone manufacturing capability today in the U.S. is struggling to be Title 10 4401 compliant, right? So, when different jurisdictions are purchasing drones for security, they are buying these drones with a requirement that it comes with the vendor system rather than the hardware being modular open systems architecture to be able to actually share that information from one system to another. I'm just curious what your thoughts are and kind of how you guys are thinking about this problem, so that when you guys acquire hardware or when you have partners that are acquiring hardware, they can do so in a way that's Title 10 4401 compliant, that also allows for us to access the demand that we need.
I can go back and answer it with 2 words: working group. Yeah, it's a great question. And so I give it the respect it's due. It's a great question. I think given just having gotten into the administration, I think those are the conversations and the questions we need to be ready to discuss, and we need to have the right people around the table to have those conversations. So this is one of those moments I don't have an answer for it. I know it's just there is a lot of discussion and a lot of input in this space, and there's going to have to be informed discussions on how we move forward with it, because we're getting a lot of questions from local departments as well that are, and some that are more urban that are able to afford and move forward in their space, and others not so much. But I would go back to, from that collaborative mindset, putting the right people around the table to answer that question. It's not avoiding it. I'm given our infancy in the administration, it's just one of those things we need to continue to further talk through.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Over here. So I think everybody in here probably knows that going through bureaucratic processes to get anything done is really, really difficult sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about this idea of coordinating responses and talking to each other and sharing our information and all of that for preparedness. But it's been 25 years since 9/11, almost 20 years since the 2007 Bronze Night attack in Estonia, which kind of showed people what damage a cyber attack can do. It showed the entire world that. And still, I feel like even after some of these major events, we had the Nord Stream pipeline attack in 2022, and it feels like I wake up every other week and see, AT&T was hacked, and this medical information was hacked, and your information is sitting in China somewhere, based on our keynote speaker yesterday, And so when we see these things keep happening, what can you say, or how can you assure people that all of these conversations and these conferences and this information sharing is more than just talk? How can we be assured that what we're doing is actually preparing across the private sector, the public sector, the state, the federal government, instead of being reactionary? Because I feel like that's what a lot of people see on kind of the other end of things.
Yeah, I think that you only hear, and this is true for everything. I think in mainstream media, is you only hear about it when it's a problem. That's the problem. You're only hearing about the problem or the incident or whatever it is, and what you don't see are the successes of things that I think are thwarted every day that you just don't know about. And so I think that I believe that from a deliverable, I do believe it's important that that messaging of building towards that, having a culture of preparedness, but then also building towards continuity. I believe that messaging is something that's a battle rhythm that we, to this day, we still have to push out there. We still have to push companies, even small businesses, to know that, in my former role, what I would often tell a lot of smaller businesses is, if you came into work tomorrow and your system was completely shut down, what do you do? Who do you call? And if they can't answer the question, like we're at such a grassroots, basic 101 level, that we have to keep pumping this message out of, look, you got to have a culture of preparedness. You got to have an incident response plan. You got to understand who to at least call and how to respond and do what you need to do. But to your point, I think that one is messaging. I think that we continue to evolve and we continue to try to get in front of what we can. There are, companies in corporate industry where things and tabletops are done that support those things. But I would go back to, you don't see a lot of what is prevented out there. We only see it when it becomes a thing. And I think that just as the world evolves, I think there'll always be a thing, because as technology evolves, there's always going to be something. Something go back to, just money, and people steal money. As long as there's a lot of money somewhere, somebody's going to try to steal it. And the way they try to steal it is going to evolve based on their ability of how they can steal it. So we have to have that culture and instill that culture, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's in the commercial industry, businesses, that preparedness is key, because that is the one thing you can control, is being as prepared as possible, versus just sitting around and waiting for something to occur and then dealing with it at that point. So, sir, one more question? One final question? Oh, it's kind of bright up here. All good?
No, I'm saying that there was one final.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Well, I think that's it. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I'll be around for just a few more minutes. If anybody wants to connect, I'll be glad to connect with you in the back if you have an opportunity. So thank you.